did you select Wolters Kluwer and Knowledge Coach, and what were some of your reasons there?
I had talked to a number of people about Knowledge Coach, ProSystems Knowledge Coach, over the past couple of years that work in both the audit and in the compilation and review area. As part of your quality control system that you need to maintain for peer review is you have to have a documentation process, and usually that documentation process is based on something like ProSystems Knowledge Coach that you've purchased for use in your audit practice. And just kind of going through all these processes, I also found that some of the products that we used didn't play well with Microsoft Office. They didn't play well with ProSystems Engagement, which we're very committed to, practice-wide, both in tax and accounting, of using that platform. And I said, we really like ProSystems Engagement. We really like ProSystems Tax. And so that was one of the drivers in looking at it, as well as cost. Over the years, it's not an absolute. ProSystems Knowledge Coach is less expensive than PPC. I wouldn't say that, but it's comparable in cost. So I thought, it's time for a comprehensive look. We were separating from another firm that I had joined in 2011, and we were taking substantially all of the audit and accounting practice with us. And I thought, this is a good time. This is just really a good time to take a fresh look. So we took a fresh look and been very, very pleased with the decision and with the results.
Did you find that Knowledge Coach had a positive impact on your audit quality?
Absolutely, that I feel that it did. We just went through our peer review in December and January of this year, and had a pass rating, which of course was what our goal was. And peer reviewers were very, very happy with the documentation in terms of us meeting all of the objectives that we needed to meet that they were looking for, and the checklist that we were using, just Knowledge Coach, and without using customized checklists that we'd added or things borrowed from AICPA that AICPA, audit quality centers hand out. I thought, let's just see if we can do everything with all Knowledge Coach and what the peer reviewers thought. And with our ABP in particular, which is kind of our bread and butter audits, we do a lot of those, they were very, very complimentary. I mean, that particular engagement that they examined had zero comments on it. I mean, we really didn't have to explain anything to them. It was really nice. I'm like, wow, the ABP just was like smooth, so smooth, And we'd adopted the Section 103 for what had been the old limited scope audits. So we'd adopted the Section 103 report, and the peer reviewers were very impressed with that. They said, well, you're kind of an early adopter for this. And I said, we had all the materials. I said, we had all the materials from AICPA. We had all of the materials from ProSystems Knowledge Coach. I couldn't see any reason not to do it. And they're like, well, that's great. You're ahead of the curve. So I think that all worked together to make, and it was our second year using that. The previous year had been our implementation year of Knowledge Coach, right, which was a fair amount of work. But once you've set everything up in Knowledge Coach, the flow is so good that you download the new version, the 22 version, and you just go through inside the rolled over binder from Engagement and update the Knowledge Coach work papers, and a lot of your carry forward work is preserved. It's a huge increase in efficiency on the second year on an audit after you've invested the time to really document properly. So
that's a great story. Compliments without comments and being ahead of the curve.
Yes,
that's
right.
Great.
Yes, exactly.
Are there some features within ProSystem FX Knowledge Coach that help your team be a little more efficient?
The features that really help the most is the structure of Knowledge Coach and the different work papers, forces completion of this section before you proceed to this section. And this is the thing that we find the most with less trained staff is they'll jump around or they'll try and do everything at the end of the engagement. And actually, even some more experienced people will try and do that, is they won't do that process. And so what we've actually charted out for ourselves internally, just our internal workflow on those, is saying, these are the documents that you need to complete first. So you're going to complete these, then we're going to have our planning meeting. Then when we come out of the planning meeting, then you complete the rest of these, and we go ahead and create the audit programs. And then you do this, and then you do that. So we have like this 4-step process of these are how you complete the work papers. And the staff are like, wow, that's super helpful, because we noticed that things won't work unless we've done something else first. And we sort of needed that map. And I said, well, yes, because Knowledge Coach is making you actually go through the steps of how you're supposed to perform the audit in a generally accepted fashion, not how you
Mm-hmm.
want to do it by jumping around. So, we get some backwards auditing. It's like the audit's done and I'm going to do all the documentation at the end. And that's backwards audit. Yeah, we're kind of auditing, but we're just trying to paper ourselves after we've done
Yeah,
what we think we're going to do.
right. Coaching you in the right direction.
Yes, absolutely.
So now that you mentioned about going through that year one, setting everything up, and then starting to see the benefits because you can just get that next version of the title, roll it forward, and you're ready to go right off the bat. Do you have a specific ROI, in mind or thoughts of with your return on investment for Knowledge Coach?
In that respect, it's actually worked better than I hoped for the year-to-year rollover and what's being preserved, as well as taking on an engagement that's very similar, same type of engagement as another one that we have, because the ability to, once staff have become familiar with the documentation and the processes, is then it's easy for them to follow something that's already been done. And so taking a similar engagement and just basically, this is what would have been recommended to us. Let me take a step back. This is what had been recommended to us by the Wolters Kluwer consultant that helped us
Right.
implement ProSystems FX Knowledge Coach. Is he had said, you really need to create a model set of work papers for each type of an engagement. It then just becomes a replication process. Once you have your set of documentation, then and you decide how you're going to utilize it, because there is some liberty in how you use these things. He said, once you've done that, then it will become really, really easy, but you need to have experienced people go through the first time and make sure that
Mm.
everything is going to work the way that you want it to, and that you get all of the pieces that you need. And we did that process. And I think that that's where we hope to get the higher ROI this year, now being the third year. Second year still was challenging because of COVID and other things, and remote auditing. This year, I think we're back to being able to do everything exactly the way that we want to do it. And in many cases, these binders are third year now on Knowledge Coach. So I think that this year we really, really hope to see a large improvement in realization and productivity on these jobs.
So thinking through that whole process from, year one with the implementation, year two experiencing the roll forward, still having sort of senior and more knowledgeable people kind of lead the way. What suggestions do you have for firms that might be starting out with Knowledge Coach?
Well, my suggestion would be utilize the training programs that come with it. Try and get those training programs as close to the period of time when you're going to actually begin doing those engagements, so it remains fresh in everybody's mind. Also recognize that the audit piece is what is the one that requires your most attention. The compilation review, very smooth and easy to use. If you have any familiarity with Knowledge Coach a lot, you should really focus on the audit documentation. Compilation review, very, very smooth and easy to use. So, and follow the recommendations with the ProSystems consultant gave you, is design your model, design your model work paper set on a typical engagement, and then use that as your model to replicate, and have more experienced people do that initial one. Don't leave it to less experienced people to quote unquote figure it out. I mean, really sit down and look at it and go, no, this is what you need to do. This is what you need to do. Develop an understanding of the functionality. And then in your own training, create that process of saying, here's how we do audits, and here's the steps in our audits. They're the kind of the large areas that we do as far as planning, internal meetings, program design, and then implementing the design and commencing the audit. It's like, go through that process and identify the Knowledge Coach pieces that need to be completed each step. We found that to be the most useful.
Yeah, I mean, that concept of, that template. I like what you said there about getting your training done, when it makes sense, not too far in advance, right? Because I agree with you. You certainly want to have it fresh in your mind when you have those senior people go in and start that. I think that's great advice. So, last question here on Knowledge Coach. Would you recommend Knowledge Coach to other firms, and why?
I would absolutely recommend Knowledge Coach to other firms. And the reason that I would recommend it is because I feel that it's a good comprehensive solution. And our successful peer review here is really proof of that, is that we did not have to build a lot of other practice aids to insert to supplement Knowledge Coach. It was sufficient unto itself. There weren't other things that we needed to add to sort of make up for what we thought might have been a little bit light with other services that we'd used.